Good Monday morning to you, and thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Alicia Lewis. Let's get to your headlines this morning. We are following breaking news out of Robbinsdale. Very chaotic scene late last night at Sanborn Park, where a shooting injured 2 people. We spoke with a neighbor who said around 9:30 last night he heard about 60 gunshots. Officers say they found a woman with a gunshot wound to her head, and she was hospitalized with grave injuries. Police say another victim showed up at the hospital with serious injuries of his own. We'll look at the markets this morning as Wall Street and the world are reacting to new auto tariffs from the White House. You can see the Dow is in the red this morning. New 25% tariffs went into effect this weekend on imported car parts. According to the U.S. Automotive Aftermarket, the U.S. imported more than $197 billion in parts from other countries just last year. But the White House says automakers assembling cars stateside will be reimbursed 3.75% of the manufacturer's retail price for the first year. The president says our trading partners are taking notice and reaching out to work out a deal.
We're negotiating with many countries, but at the end of this, I'll set my own deals because I set the deal. They don't set the deal, I set the deal. They've been ripping us off for years, I set the deal. Sir. Every country, almost without fail, friend and foe, has been ripping us off for years. So we're meeting with almost all of them, including China. And at the end, I'm setting the deal.
Meantime, the trade war is now being extended to the theater. On his social media platform on Sunday, the president announcing he's ordered a tariff on foreign movies imported to the U.S. The 100% tariff will include all films coming to the U.S. that were produced outside of the United States. It's not clear how such a tariff would be imposed. Films are not goods, they are intellectual property, so they represent a kind of service that is not currently subject to tariffs. The film tariffs will be instituted by the Commerce Department and U.S. Trade Representative. Well, if you took out any federal student loans, you got to hear this next story. Today, the Trump administration is restarting collection of defaulted federal student loans paused during the pandemic. Audrey Russo is joining us right now with what this means if you're one of the millions of people that borrowed money and are impacted this morning.
The stress may be immediate, especially if you haven't made a payment for 270 days or more. But you still have time before the hit to your paycheck. The Education Department says it'll begin wage garnishment later on this summer. At least 5 million people are in default on their loans. An additional 4 million people have loans that are nearing default between 90 to 180 days past due. So how did we get here? Well, rewind 5 years when collections on student debt were paused during President Trump's first term in March 2020. The Biden administration extended it through the pandemic, bringing us to today. If you are one of those millions of people who are in default or delinquency, there are avenues you can take before your credit is dramatically impacted. Experts recommend borrowers check their status and update their contact information on their loan provider's website. Then you can look into deferment or forbearance programs, and you can learn more about those on the Student Aid Office's Default Resolution Group website. Back to you.
All right, Audrey, thank you. Well, jury selection begins today for Sean Diddy Combs in New York City. The music mogul is charged with racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. If convicted on all counts, he could get life in prison. Separately, Combs faces dozens of related civil suits and denies all those allegations as well. Happening right now, the Department of Justice announcing it's now investigating the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. Stems from a story that KARE 11 first broke about the county attorney's new policy that would require the consideration of race when it comes to plea deals. Joe McCoy has the latest.
The Hennepin County Attorney's Office and the U.S. Department of Justice are now in a legal battle. In a letter addressed to County Attorney Mary Moriarty, the DOJ says its investigation into the Hennepin County Attorney's Office will, quote, focus on whether the HCAO engages in the illegal consideration of race in its prosecutorial decision-making. This investigation comes after the Hennepin County Attorney's Office began a new negotiation policy Monday that requires Hennepin County prosecutors to consider a defendant's defendant's race, among other factors, when negotiating plea deal offers. One section of the policy states, quote, "Racial disparities harm our community, lead to distrust, and have a negative impact on community safety. Prosecutors should be identifying and addressing racial disparities at decision points as appropriate." In addition to investigating this new race-based negotiation policy, the DOJ says they will conduct a full investigation to determine if the HCAO is, quote, "engaged in a pattern or practice of depriving persons of rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States." In a statement to KARE 11, the HCAO says they will cooperate with any resulting investigation and are fully confident their policy complies with the law.
Again, that was Joe McCoy. Now, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office says that the goal of this policy is to achieve safe, equitable, and just outcomes that center the healing of victims while improving public safety. Around dinner time tonight, the Brooklyn Center City Council is set to revisit a proposal to create a Community Safety and Violence Prevention Commission. It comes 4 years after former police officer Kim Potter shot and killed Daunte Wright during a traffic stop. Wright's mom, Katie Wright, says that little has changed since her son's death and wants the council to take action.
It's going to build a safer city for all, and it's something that they promised. We don't want any other mothers to go through the hell that we've been through.
Now, the council initially voted to establish the commission in December, but with new members joining in January, the process was paused. Some members say that they're concerned about who should be able to serve on the commission and what exactly their duties would be. New video this morning from Vatican City, where workers installed the red curtain on St. Peter's Basilica ahead of the conclave beginning Wednesday. This is the exact spot the world will be introduced to the next pope. It's one of the final preparations ahead of the conclave to elect the new leader of the Catholic Church. The ancient, highly secretive process to choose a new pope begins Wednesday. Jay Gray is in Vatican City this morning with a closer look at the process and the men who make that decision.
Well, good morning, and the change is becoming more apparent here at the Vatican. I want you to take a look at the balcony here on St. Peter's Basilica, and this morning they installed the red curtains there. That, of course, is where the new Pope will appear for the first time to the world. It's been just over a week since the death of Pope Francis, that time filled with meetings, private discussions, and prayer. 133 Catholic cardinals, a vast majority, 80% appointed by Francis. They'll come together behind the locked doors of the Sistine Chapel to elect his successor. For the Catholic cardinals who've gathered in their holy city, the task they face is as difficult as it is important. Choosing from among them the next leader of their faith.
We are praying for a new pope.
Praying, preparing for the conclave, and talking, though not so much publicly.
It's okay.
The substance saved for private discussions.
There's a lot of meetings, both formal meetings and what we call congregations, but there's also, even more important, the informal meetings over dinner, coffee, drinks, where they get a chance to get to know each other.
This will be the largest and most diverse conclave in the history of the Catholic Church and will be undoubtedly influenced by the man they're trying to replace.
I think there's a number of issues that the cardinals are looking at as they go into the conclave. First of all is the legacy of Pope Francis.
I'm sure the pope will be as Franciscus, the same vision, the same dreams.
What is not sure is who that may be. He says that he's looking for the Spirit to give him an idea, as the world later this week looks for the white smoke. The small chimney has been moved atop the Sistine Chapel over the week, and that smoke will indicate that there is a new leader of the Catholic Church, the world's largest Christian denomination with more than 1.4 billion members. At the Vatican, I'm Jay Gray. Back to you now.
Well, this morning, the Timberwolves round 2 matchup of the NBA playoffs is all set. They're going to be taking on the Warriors tomorrow night at home at the Target Center. Golden State eliminated Houston just before our 10 o'clock newscast last night. Tip-off for tomorrow's game, 8:30. Game 2 is Thursday at 7:30, and this gives the team nearly a week of practice, so they should be ready to go. Well, we also have the schedule this morning for the Minnesota Frost in the PWHL playoffs. They're going to be facing the Scepters in the first round in a best of 3. Game 1 and 2 will be in Toronto Wednesday and Friday, and if Game 3 is needed, they'll be back home at the X Sunday. The defending champs punched their ticket with a big win against Boston Saturday. Final score here 8-1. They just dominated. It's the largest margin of victory in PWHL history. Well, hey, stick with us. More news and weather after the break.